saved my life on this project. Because then I revamped it so that it was sustainable, and then I didn't have to touch the theme for 2 months. It was great. All right. So the basic idea about sustainable theming is that it'll grow with your website. So you set up building blocks of how the design should be. And then as you add new features, add new views, add new content types, add, making it grow and changing things, the theme will readjust itself to these new sections because you've set up this idea of how to build towards the design. So with doing this, that means that you save a tremendous amount of time working on the theme layer. You set up your ideas, you set up what the theme means, what the design building blocks are, which that means that you don't have to repeat yourself. You don't have to do it again. You don't have to say, oh, now I've made this view, and now I'm going to make this view look like this other view, and now I'm going to have to put this time into making it look like that again, even though I've already done it. Or, oh, I've changed something, and now that broke it, the design, so now I have to rebuild it. None of that. The next idea about it is that you have to work with Drupal. You kind of have to accept it the way it is, and try not to get angry, and just be like, okay, Drupal, you are the way you are. I'm gonna do it your way, and work with you instead of trying to make Drupal conform to my way of doing things. Which, trust me, I wanted to do. Which I have been doing for years, actually. So, you want to save time. You want to be able to do your design and move on. If you're the designer, this is the only thing that you're doing. You want to start on your next project. You don't want to have it every single time the developer adds a new view. He calls you up and go, okay, now can you make the view look pretty? Okay, now you're back in the project again, and you want to just set these things going and move on. You want the developer to be able to help themselves. So you set up these systems, so now the developer can just be like, okay, as long as I name it this, then it'll look nice. During testing, the client will then always have a good-looking site. We had a couple problems with the client before I had revamped the theme, where the developer would be like, oh, I just implemented this new feature, it's working awesome, it's great, here you go, look at it, is this how you want this feature to work? And the client would always come back, it looks so terrible. And they'd be like, but this should be over here, why is this not the same color as it is over here? Why is you really should have those little gray boxes around it, just like everything else has those little gray boxes around it. And it's like, so I didn't get my designer to come over here yet. And we will do that. Do you have any suggestions on the feature? And does it work properly? Sometimes the client can't even see through the design problems. And so you want to be able to save time to be able to build out the feature, have the client look at it without the client obsessing about that it looks bad. And then you get the site working, it's great, you launch the site, you give the website to the client. One of the great things about Drupal is that you want to enable the client to be able to work more on the project, to work more on it himself. Maybe while you've been developing, he's been reading more about Drupal. Maybe he even set up his own little personal blog, so we'll check it out a little bit. Or he's just been, signing in as user 1 and tweaking things on you, which has happened. Don't give user 1's password. And so he's gonna want to add something. He's gonna want to add something to the menu. He's gonna want to move this over there. Enable him to be able to do that without breaking the whole thing. Allow him to be able to add a new menu item without messing up the strict regimented numbering schemes or something that broke it. So this then saves our time. I don't know about you guys, but our company and my own philosophy is that I don't want to have to maintain a website forever. I want to be able to enable a company to be able to hire a tech person who's not necessarily a super Drupal expert, but be able to do small things to the website, and then call me for the big feature stuff, but not contact me just to not sustainable. Like, because that means that every single time you add a new thing, you have to reskin it. But for a site like Drupal.org, you have to enable the developers to be able to add a new block, add a new view, and have it look okay. So with doing that, you have to accept the way that Drupal outputs its HTML and try not to be like, oh, this is so horrible, I have to rewrite the whole thing from scratch because this isn't what I want. So with that, you become primarily a CSSer. Like, you really master your CSS and put aside, how you want the HTML to be structured. And not want to rewrite all of the HTML. So some of the stuff that Drupal outputs, is not that good. It doesn't give you everything that you need, and you need some more. So the first step that you should do is use Zen. Zen will start outputting much better HTML, much better CSS classes, and it starts to restructure the templates for you so that it's much better to use CSS to set things up. Another thing is that it saves you time because it does all the tedious work for you. It has an SEO optimized layout. I mean, this is the layout that I've been using for years, that I was building from scratch myself, that I had my own little HTML template that I was just copying around to all of my other projects. Turns out that Zen was using it all along. So why do I have to rebuild it from scratch again? Just use Zen. And another thing that adds on is it adds on another CSS style sheet that equalizes all the HTML elements across all the browsers. You don't really have to use that reset CSS block that some people use because it does it much more elegantly here. One of the reasons why I don't like the reset is because when you use Firebug, it changes every single HTML element, so it becomes really difficult to debug using Firebug because you have this huge list of things that it's affecting. This has a nice, robust style sheet that just targets just the right stuff, just what you need, and will optimize your debugging using Firebug. It styles some common things. Some common things that I always would never get around to styling whenever I made my own template from scratch. Tabs. That's an admin interface. Why do I need to, do tabs? And what about messages? Oh, I never really get around to messages. And okay, fine, I'll finally get around to it. I'll put a little red border around the messages thing. I never get around to it. And then the client sees an error every once in a while and it's like, God, that looks ugly. And then, maybe you forgot about it or whatever. Well, it's just style and it's just done. And you don't have to pay attention to it unless, you really need to. And then finally, as I said before, it adds more CSS classes for you to make it much easier for you to become a CSSer when working. So Zen has a recommendation of how to set up a sub-theme of Zen. But I have some tweaks to that. So I have a pamphlet that is going to go through the step-by-step of how I recommend to set up a Zen sub-theme. But here are my notable recommendations. Don't edit layout.css. So Zen recommends that you take the cross-browser fluid layout and then edit it to your specific needs, like that you need the sidebar to be this width, you need the fixed width to be this width, and such like that. I don't recommend editing that. I recommend doing a system of overrides. So you have your own personal, mytheme.css file, and you override what you need. This was another thing that bit us on the project that I was working on, because we had done that. We had edited layout.css, and somewhere along the line, it broke. It was then hell to try to debug, because I have all of it, and how do I comment out this section? Well, did this change to it? Did this change to it? It was so hard to do, and I couldn't do it. So finally, I was forget it, I'm now going to do overrides. And so I just reverted it, and then I moved all the custom changes into our theme CSS, and it actually fixed it. I actually didn't have to debug it afterwards, so I actually don't know what I did wrong, because that actually fixed it. So I'd recommend doing that, because the changes that you make are probably going to be pretty small. It's probably just going to be, with here, with there. I mean, if you're going to be doing huge changes anyways, maybe you wouldn't need to, use this layer. Again, don't copy over the HTML elements CSS file and just call it from Zen directly. Why do you need to edit it? Again, use, override. Your style sheet is the last style sheet to be loaded, so you can just override it. So just have Zen load it from itself, and then you won't be tempted to edit it. And then finally, start with a blank custom CSS style sheet. Zen was recommending that you copy its example, and it's about 1,000 lines of empty classes. And one of the problems with having that is that, again, it was difficult to debug in Firebug, because you try to get it, it would give you a list of all these empty CSS classes. So that's difficult. And also, it doesn't promote you to set up your style sheet correctly, which I'm going to go over how to set it up correctly. Because you should be, well, I'll explain why you should be grouping it. But anyway, so it doesn't set it up correctly. And so it kind of pushes you towards bad habits. So you should probably just start off fresh and do my next recommendation. So I have a handout for the step-by-step instructions, if you'd like them. And so how I want you to set up your style sheet is basically, when you're going over your design, find the common denominators between things. Figure out your design, find the pattern, find how all the pieces connect, because you're going to find repeating things, even though they're on different pages, even though they're on different sections. So break down your design into how it means, and find the common denominators. So here's some things that, when I was thinking of how to build this design, these are the little elements. So I have the little red links, this little gray border box. That's actually used very frequently in many different places. So I had to figure out, how can I repeat this? The block headers have a certain way and a certain look and feel, and titles were set up in a certain way. So then on another page, now we have little orange links and we have little red links. We've got, an orange header block, we've got a gray header block, but they're still very similar. We've got that gray border box again, even though it's a little different. Like the other one was wrapping nodes, this one's wrapping a group of nodes. Well, how can I use them? There's the big red title again, even though it's on a different page. And this is a shaded border box. It's very, very similar to the gray one, except now that it has it, you know what color that is. It's like this pinkish, beigeish color, but it has a different background. And now we've got tables. The tables are set up in a certain way. We've still got the little red links in different areas. Now it's contact links in a table. And another table is set up again the same exact way. The designer has a pattern. So we need to figure out what this pattern is that the designer's thinking and try to repeat these. So one way you can do that is through progressive enhancement. You find the baseline, and that's what all of those elements will look like. And then you override in your CSS with the special cases. So all of my blocks have a thin title with a gray image background. But then I have special case blocks where certain blocks have the orange background. So there's only actually 2 blocks that have an orange background, so I could just use the ID to target it. This was just, ID PD guide, ID most recent contributions. And then that was it. And then also when I structured my style sheet, that's actually the next slide. So, again, with the gray border box. So the shaded box and the gray border box are very similar. So I just had all of the boxes design project, I have 4 style sheets. Because one style sheet alone is 1,000 lines. After I wrote this, I was like, how many lines do I have? Oh, one is like 1,200 lines. Oh. So imagine if I had all of them in one big, huge file. That becomes kind of a pain to work with. But it's also helpful if it's broken up, because then you can work on 2 style sheets simultaneously if you need to. For whatever reason you need to work on 2 sections, you can. Very easily by just having 2 files open. And as long as you break them up into logical sections, then you might not have an instance where you have to keep on scrolling up and down on the same style sheet to make the changes. So code to save time. So like I was saying about grouping the gray border box. So you can use multiple CSS selectors for the same group of styles. So I have my custom class name in gray box, and that's what I put when I am making my own section, my own HTML from scratch for the gray box. Then I can just give it the class gray box. But then there are instances where something really should be in a gray box that I can't choose what the CSS selector should be or what the classes should be. So I just add that on to the list. So I'll have for the little yellow links, the little red links, I have classes like CSS selectors like this big because I don't have a unique identifier for it, but it allows me to edit all of them across the site very quickly instead of having to repeat myself. Instead of repeating the gray box code across the different sections, you just have multiple CSS selectors. You should use general selectors when possible. Try not to be too specific. So as you see for the views one, if you use style unformatted views row, I'm just saying that every single view that is unformatted should always have this gray box. And that is where it's beginning to be sustainable. This means that whenever a developer makes a new view for you, it looks good. It's already set up. But if you start being specific about it, like you say, for almost no reason at all, okay, the research question should have this gray border box, the news should have this gray border box, the clinical trial should have this gray border box. Then it starts, then every single time you make a new view, you're going to have to add this again. You don't want to. So you have the baseline, and then you override the specifics. But don't be too general. For example, the tables, I went a little too general. I went, all tables. Table should look like this. That actually turned out pretty bad. So be careful if you are going to be too general. But in general, try to be more general than you need. If you're targeting a view anyways, probably pretty safe. But if you're targeting an entire element, maybe not. And then use consistent naming schemes. If you have to, talk with all your developers and just agree on what this thing is called. So if you have a content type, call the view using the same words. So if you have one that, the content type is plural, name it the same thing in the view. So we had this problem when we had research questions. So it's plural, it's 2 words, but the content type is called question, and the view was called research question. And then we always called it our Qs, and then, so it really got to be a pain, and maybe just adding a couple HTML wrappers to field might give you what you're looking for. This will allow it to grow. So then when you finally do start creating templates for your content types, optimize node.tpl.php first. Make that what is the most common for all of your content types. Because that probably means that if you add a new content type, it's probably going to be similar to that too. For PD Online, every single content type, except for one, is using node.tpl.php. This makes it 10 times easier. Because she developed clinical trials, and it just worked. I didn't have to theme it. They were like, oh yeah, this looks wonderful. Can you just move the breadcrumbs? Sure, that's easy. I didn't have to make a new template or anything. It just worked. And it saves a tremendous amount of time because, you know, all those similar elements that are between all of them, I don't have to repeat myself on every single template. Just do it on the node template. If you don't know any programming, you know, try to figure out how to use like if statements, and because then you can do if the content type equals this, print this one line. Because very often, like the only difference between one content type and another is, you know, one line or something like that, or the ordering, and you can do that very, very easily with just a small amount of if statements. So you do need, so using node.tpl.php, optimizing that means that all by default will all use the same template. But if you do need to start branching off and using, and you know that like, well, these 4 could use Node, but these 3, they're all similar, but similar in a different way. You can have them all use the same template. There's code snippets that you can find on Drupal that will allow you, and just like, you know, 3 lines of code that will allow you to have all like set content types use a specific template. And you can just put that into your template.php file, and then you all use the same template, which saves you a lot of time. And then when you do add a new content type that happens to use that template, it's just 1 line of code to how to use it. When you do start modifying templates, try to do it gently. Maximize the existing HTML. You might have to change your CSS approach. I know that I did. I mean, I was very, like, I wanted my HTML, my CSS to always be perfect. But it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable in, you know, not just in terms of this talk, but sustainable in terms of, you know, making a living. And also, like, clients don't want to pay that much for it. So it's like, oh, sure, I can do that, but it'll take me, you know, a week. They're like, wait, what? I have to pay you a week's worth to do this? They don't really want to do that. So optimizing the amount of time it takes you to do things, they will love you for it. So when you make modifications, you know, really try to minimize what it is. So this is an example of a modification that I had made to the template. All I did is I just added this statement around it. And this is how it's very often in these templates. You know, for views rows, all I did is I just added another wrapper. I just wanted an inner. There was a view row, but there was no view row inner. So I just edited it just to put in a view row inner. In this particular case, I found that the view was outputting HTML even if there wasn't any results. Well, probably shouldn't do that. I really should go and tell the views maintainer, you know, maybe you should put this wrapper in here. So think about that. When you're making these changes, like, is this something that you would want to do all the time? Is this something that you're like, this is stupid, it really should be this way? Well, that's what this conference is for, so that we can help Drupal. And this is one of the examples. If you find that, you know, you're just adding in something So, like the body will be truncated, maybe only some of the content is displayed.
Could you talk a little more about what problems you ran into with the big site when you stopped using teasers? Because I'm sort of at the point where I'm considering just like never using teasers again. But yeah, I'm sort of interested
yeah,
in
so that was a case where I have it there on an issue of like if I ever have to touch views again, I'm just transferring everything over to teasers. So yeah, let's see.
Recent versus
No, actually I don't. Oh, you know what I can do?
recent versus related, we had that in the same case of paint.
I hate that I have to click work online so I can work on my own stuff. Yeah, it's of course so it's very slow on my local development environment because I don't have any of the performance fixes. Okay, so let's see. All right, so let's take this. So here I have a news item, and it's kind of styled like this. I have a title, I have that, and I have a teaser. And I go down here. This is a news item too. But this is a different type of news item. So if you're not extremely familiar with views, like we had a discussion about this, that one of the things that you can do is that you can make default patterns for a particular view. So then you try to set up your views so that you can maximize those defaults as best as you can. So which defaults do you want to maximize for? So that's something that you really have to think about. So I'm really not too sure what we wanted to do the defaults for. So we actually had an argument over it a bit. So one of the problems is that this is repeated in different views. So I had to repeat the way this looks in different views. So I grouped the views by content type. So another way, like maybe to save some time, is to group these by blocks. So I have these things. So I have, this is a news item. It has a title, has the body, this date, and how many responses were to it. The problem is that they change. The blocks look a little bit, they're just a tiny little bit different, and I have to rearrange them differently. So let's see if I go over here. So then these are just a little tiny bit different. And it was driving me crazy. Because then when I ever had to make like a little change, I would then have to go through all the views to make this change to all of them. And it was such a pain. So if we ever want to add like a new item to like research questions or something, I probably would have to edit like 2 or 3 views. It's a hard problem to solve, but I just figured that it might be better to just say that all research question blocks would be displayed in this way, because each block is a tiny little bit different because each one is displaying a little bit different information, so I can't just group that. All content type blocks are displayed this way. And also the ordering was different for every block. Because I had to, maximize the floats, how the floats would work.
I noticed you have organic groups there, and did you have any thoughts on theming those or any interesting challenges? One of the challenges I face is I have organic groups and each groups need to be slightly different because each group need to maintain their own identity. So I wonder if you face any similar situation.
No, I didn't face anything about that one because they're all the same. Do I have any content in here? No, I don't have any content. Sorry. I did have content. I guess I must have deleted it. Actually, I found that the organic groups are really, really simple. We actually didn't even realize that organic groups were not themed. Because of how I set up all the building blocks, everything just looked fine. And so, yeah, I guess I was always a
nobody has, I would ask another question. In the layout that you have, many times the issue comes if the content flows much different variable length, then the navigation side or this side is sometimes is too short or too big. And so
Yeah.
how to fill that up based on the content on the left side? Is there any kind of issue there?
I didn't notice a problem. On the homepage in particular, when I log out, I mean, I'm optimizing it for the most typical users. So two typical users are anonymous users and members. And members don't have that little navigation bar. So then it looks a lot better. And so then the other thing is, yeah, I mean, that is a little long. It was working before. It must be like just changing the content. I was trying, like I did tweak that. I wonder if
Is there a way you can know in your theme or layer something how much is the content length on the one side to manage content on the other side?
on the theme layer. I don't think so. So one of the things, like, so the sidebars as an example, the designer made the sidebars in assumption that you have content on it, that people, that users have contributed content to this article. And so it'll pad out the page, which then the sidebars fit fine when you have like 3 or 4 comments onto it. But when you have 0 comments on a short article, it doesn't look as good. Yeah.
One thing I was wondering about is if you'd used like multiple inherited themes, because that's something that I do. Like I use that for a lot of my base theming, and then because in Drupal 6 you can have themes inherited from other themes, so I'll create like a general theme that's inherited from them that'll have like general layout and design that goes with a lot of the sites that I work on, and then I'll have a sub-theme of that will apply specific design to that site, so that I can reuse a lot of that sort of more general design across multiple sites.
Yeah, I started doing that on this project that I'm working on. I was using the Austin theme, so it's a contributed theme, and it should avoid hacking things. So what I did is I just made a sub-theme of that contributed theme so that I can make my customizations without hacking. And this would also allow me so that when I finally do get around to making a custom theme for this project, I have the specific things that I need for this project already there. I'm not going to have to try to extract it from what I hacked into the original theme. Yeah, so you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think sub-themes are unlimited.
I think so.
Nice.
When 6 was first released, there was issues with stacking them like that. Now, since recent updates have happened, it seems to be a lot more stable in that matter. But I have used like a stack of 3 themes before to do things.
Yeah. So like if this is something that you do a lot of, is like you're a themer, you can create your own base theme that does what you need and what you want most of the time, and then have your specific site themes as a sub theme of that one that you made. So you can have Zen as your super base, then have your Zen override. So like take for example that views template